Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello everyone and welcome to a double dose of a weekly wrap-up. Yes, last weekend I was with my family at the cabin and so we have a double dose of books to talk about, which I believe is, it's not the most I've ever talked about in a weekly wrap-up, but I think we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 12 to talk about. But some of them I have already talked about in other videos, and one of them was my Patreon read. So we'll see how long this ends up being, but be prepared. I'm not going to rush myself through some of these that I'm very excited to chat about. So buckle up, get your snacks, get a drink, get ready for a party, as it were. But first up, we have some supporters to welcome because my, the floodgates have opened for some of these. And I'm so thankful to everyone who's supporting little old me and what I'm doing here. It means the absolute world to me. We have 2 new patrons here. We have Francesca L. and we have Sarah, who've joined my Patreon, which is awesome. Thank you so much. And then we have quite a few new channel members, which is great. That's just so great. Channel members get early access to videos. They also get to help vote on a topic every month. There are also a monthly live chat. So lots of great things going on there. But we have an Isabel, Alex, and Jessica. We have Francesca again, who joined in both places. Thank you so much. Then we have Mrs. Burns. We have Domini Dennis, and we have another Jessica, Jessica I. So thank you all so much for supporting what I do here. It means so much that you value my opinions on stories, and I hope to keep bringing that to you for many, many years to come. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say. But let's go ahead and dive into everything that I've read, and boy, do I have some stuff to say about this. So starting off though, I did touch on this book in the last weekly wrap-up because if you'll recall, that one was a bit of a shorter one just because I hadn't gotten through too many reads. So I did talk about this one when I was at about 70% done. And my thoughts didn't really change. I really enjoyed this book. So that was My Favorite Hero by Melanie Moreland. And I just thought this one was absolutely adorable. This was a neighbors to lovers. They started out really grumpy with one another. This woman moves to this small town because a woman who's very important in her life has just passed, and she ends up staying in her like apartment or like part of this like duplex. But our hero was planning to buy out the whole house, and so he is a bit befuddled when someone else has now moved into this spot. So he's definitely a grump with her for a good portion of it. But the thing that really starts to draw them together is that, number one, he keeps showing up when she's in distress. She is a bit of a damsel in some aspects, but she's also a damsel in a few like silly scenarios. Including some that could have been a bit dicey. So some of the silly scenarios, he makes it seem like she has really gotten herself in a pickle, and she's like, dude, I would have been fine if you had just left me be. But he loves to be a hero. He says he doesn't, but he is a firefighter, well-respected firefighter in town, though he is a bit of a grump. But what really starts to draw them together is actually their pets, and I just love that. She has a cat and he has a dog, and their pets love each other. So that really forces them around each other more than they probably wanted to be, and I think that is adorable. Okay, I think it's adorable. So anyway, I ended up at a 4.5 star for this one, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. Very cute. Okay, next up was Damaged Mogul by Scarlett Avery, and I believe, based on a comment, that Scarlett has actually watched the channel, so hello you, if you're watching, thank you so much. This was the second book that I'd read by Scarlett Avery. Actually, the first book I read in September was Off Limits Mogul, and I was getting ALCs of these from Must Love Audio. So this one right here, actually I need to open my computer, I hadn't had that open yet. This one is, I couldn't really see how it was related with the other ones. I'm sure there was a connection somehow, but I didn't really see where this one was connected to Off Limits Mogul. I'm unsure. Maybe I missed it there. But this was duet narrated by Jason Clarke and Vivian LaRue. Great pairing. And this one was a pretty big age gap. It was he's kind of a pseudo bodyguard for her. She's the daughter of this really wealthy man, but she was actually the unwanted pregnancy of this guy who has older sons who really are his, like, part of his business. So he isn't the nicest to her. But he has provided for her, albeit a bit begrudgingly, and she's now at an age where he kind of expects her to give back in certain aspects. So he's pretty demanding of her. But she gets this chance to go to, I can't remember if it is in California, I think it is, to look at some schools out there, because she's just turned 21, and he gets one of his business associates, which is Gage, to kind of, as I said, be her pseudo bodyguard and look out for her while she's there. Now, Gage, I believe, is like 10 or 11, maybe even more years older than her. I know she's 21 and he was in like his 30s, so pretty big age gap. But they just have a crazy attraction to one another right away, and her time there very quickly turns to them deciding to get busy with one another while they're there, and then we'll see, you know, will she be able to just go back to her normal life, or will there be something between them? They had really good chemistry, though a lot of it is pretty lust forward with them, but there was a surprising lot of heart that came out as well. I don't want to like spoil anything, because a lot of the beauty of their relationship comes further on in the story. There is a good amount of time spent on them getting pretty busy together. She's also a virgin, and so it becomes a bit of a like teach me your kinky ways type of a story. But they have some similarities that you maybe wouldn't expect that have to do with their mothers, and that have to do with some aspects of that. I don't want to spoil it. Then this does have a surprise pregnancy in it, though it is a third act surprise. So I understand why some people aren't saying that it's there. I actually read 2 books I'm going to talk about in this one that the pregnancy was a third act surprise. But you guys know me, I'm always going to tell you if there's a surprise pregnancy in there. And I loved how the hero reacted to this, though the third act in this one does involve a misunderstanding that, well, I don't want to say the heroine completely jumps to conclusion, because she has someone who really firmly pushes her into that conclusion. And she is very young and has seen a lot of cheating and stuff happen around her. So I understood it. And overall, I ended up at a 4.5 that I rounded up to 5, since this one was a ALC of it. And it was a 4 on the spice scale with this one. There was some breath play and some kind of breeding kink and restraints and a little bit of spanking too. So this one did get lightly kinky, and this one did have some trigger warnings for that very manipulative parent. I would consider it gaslighting, some of what this parent does to her. So it's definitely some emotional abuse happening in those aspects. But yeah, enjoy that. Okay, next up was the big dog, as it were. All right, there was Alchemized. Okay, now I have a complete spoiler vlog for this, which was 2 hours long. This also is one of my favorite reads of September, and I talk about it in that wrap up as well. But I did promise kind of a spoiler free section here in this video, which I absolutely want to do. I will not be able to hold this up the whole time because it will start to hurt my wrist. So we'll set this one. Woo! Move my flowers over there. We'll set this one behind my head because I tried to hold it in a video the other day and it hurt my wrist, so we'll put it up there. And how I want to do this spoiler-free one here is to just talk about this as the entity itself and give you the setup of the story, and then talk about what I liked about it. Whereas both the spoilery review that I did, as well as the wrap-up I did in my September wrap-up video, I talked more about the comparisons with Manacled and all that. So let's just talk about this book as itself first, and then I'm going to address some of the bad reactions that I'm seeing to it that don't have to do with it being a fanfic. They have to do with some other things that are really pissing me off, as tends to happen. So we'll get around to that. So Alchemized is a dark high fantasy, and I would call it with a strong romantic subplot, okay? I originally wanted to say this was a dark high fantasy romance, but after some discussion with friends and listening to their thoughts, I can see why we don't want to fully put this in a romantasy, as some people are going to want to do, because the romance is pretty important to this story, I will say that. But I don't think that romantasy, or even saying fantasy romance, quite fully fits what this story is trying to do and what it is about, because the politics and the dark aspect and the parts of it that compare with The Handmaid's Tale are actually even more prominent than some of the Harry Potter vibes to it. So I think it's important that we not lose that in the fact that a lot of us are excited about it, that it is a Hermione, right? So I would call it a dark high fantasy with a strong romantic subplot, but it does have an HEA, so if you do end up calling it a dark romance, like, that's up to you. I'm just telling you how I'm categorizing in my brain and how I'm trying to explain it to you guys. But this story revolves around Helena, and in the beginning of this story, she is waking up from basically being kept captive in a stasis tank where she is deprived of all sensation for the most part and has no memory of what has gone on for the past, I think it's supposed to be 14 months. And when she gets drawn out, the world looks quite different than when she went in, though she doesn't immediately know that because, again, her memories are gone. And she gets brought forth, and people are trying to get information from her because it turns out she was a very important member to a rebel cause called the Order of the Eternal Flame. And she doesn't remember anything. She doesn't know anything. And when they start to prod her mind using alchemy or this type of magic or whatever, they find that something's been done to her mind. And whether it was her who did it to herself or someone who did it to her, those memories are just gone. But they want them, because though they may act like she is unimportant and are trying to say that, it's very clear that she was more important than they want to maybe let her know about herself. And there are secrets she may have that could help them make sure they have fully defeated this resistance, okay? So in this dark dystopian magical world, there's someone called the High Necromancer, and he is our dark overlord, as it were, and he has many minions who do his bidding on the promise of eternal life. So there are these different levels of his minions. There are those called the Undying, who basically have made a deal with him, I won't tell you how, where they will never die. And then there are those who are like basically thralls is what they're called, and they have been brought back from the dead. And some of those that are brought back from the dead have actually had the consciousness of other undyings, where if their body has died, their consciousness has been put into them and they're able to keep doing what they're doing. And then there are people who've been put literally in like a breeding program, because as happens when you try to stamp out an entire population, you may be losing important parts of it. And yeah, so there's all these different levels of evil going on, and it's just pretty awful. And not long after being woken up, it gets determined that the High Reeve character, who is kind of a second in command to the High Necromancer, he gets assigned to basically look out for Helena. And by look out, I mean take possession of her and work on getting her mind healed enough for them to extract this information. And so she gets put in these manacles, I recognize that name, that suppress her, we're just going to call it magic. It has a name in here. It's all well named and everything, but it gets suppressed by these. And she gets handed off and taken to this very dark gothic castle that has thralls roaming the halls that do the bidding of their master. We have a very angry wife to the High Reeve. I can't remember her name. I don't really care what it is. But our High Reeve, his name is Kane Farron. And every so often he's supposed to do these sessions where he tries to fix her mind / extract info from her. But if he goes too hard too fast, it could stress her body and she could die, and they will lose all of that information. So the first part of this story is Helena living in this hell, being scared all the time, slowly putting pieces together, starting to remember certain pieces about who people were, and how she maybe knew them. We learn that there was a leader of the opposite, a leader of the Eternal Flame that was killed, and that kind of killed the movement. A lot of the other members were killed as well, or turned into thralls themselves. It was just it's awful, and it's what it looks like to lose a rebellion, all right? But there's something more going on underneath it all. And since this is my non-spoiler review of this, there comes to a point where now Helena, because they're not getting what they need from her mind, they decide to use her body in a different way. As I mentioned, there is a breeding program. And based on the possibilities of the skill that she has, which again, they're suppressing it, but they're able to know what type of skills that she has, the type of alchemy skills she possesses, because there are different categories that everybody fits into. I don't have the time to go into all of that for you. That the best pairing for her would actually be Cain Farron. So now not only is he supposed to rape her mind, he's supposed to rape her body as well. And yeah, that is a very, very dark part of this story. But when we get to part 2 of this story, and I don't want to spoil all of it, right? Because this is a non-spoiler part for people who haven't read Manacled and don't know about it. But this story is split into 3 parts, and there's that beginning part I'm talking about where Helena doesn't know what's going on, and she wants to remember, but also remembering means that she would give her captors what they want. And when we get to part 2, we will actually flash back in time to years before, when we're still in the midst of this war, and the Order of the Eternal Flame hasn't lost it yet. And we will learn that Helena actually knew Cain Farron in a very different context. And it makes the situation we find ourselves at the beginning even more dark and tragic, because it's awful what's happening to Helena. It's absolutely the worst of human depravity. But what would it be like if you were the one who was fully aware of how you know this person and your feelings for that person, and you were forced to play along with the torture and rape of this person? And that is another twisted layer to the whole thing. So part 2 will then have us flashing back in time, will show us how we got to where we are at the beginning, and then there will be a part 3 where after Helena will have regained all those memories, how will we get out of the situation we're in? So those are the 3 parts of the story. So this is a very dark, heavy tale, and it's not going to be for everyone. It doesn't matter that this is now on bestseller lists and this is now in stores, which I do think is awesome and I have conflicted feelings about, but overall I'm really happy for this author because I think this story is fascinating. And to simply say like, oh, well, she just should have started with another book to come out and, sidestep all of this connection with Manacled, I'm sorry, or they should have, pardon me. I don't think that's as simple as it sounds, because let's be honest, this is the story that everyone wanted to be able to buy and own and have. And to say that Senlin Yu, that they should have just started with something fresh and new and trusted a brand new work you cannot tell me it would be this successful. You cannot, I won't hear it, you're wrong. It wouldn't be. This is the one they wanted. And so for whatever confliction I might have about how similar this is to Manacled, I don't think you can deny that this author wouldn't have the success that they do if they didn't start with this one. I just don't think it's possible. And wherever they go next, whatever story they tell next, they will owe that success to the fact that they started with this one. Manacled, which you shouldn't rate fan fiction and you shouldn't, show that you've read it on Goodreads even decide that. There are I believe, over 1 million hits on Manacled as a fan fiction on Goodreads. And you can't deny that to a publisher that that's what they wanted from it, right? So I ended up giving this 5 stars. And if you do want more, you can watch my my spoiler review of Alchemized to see truly what it felt like to me. I didn't end up at 6 stars for this book because it is still an echo of Manacled. It is. And a lot of the parts of this story that moved me the most, they're direct echoes of Manacled. And that was a 6-star story to me. It is my favorite dark high fantasy of all time. I don't care that it's under a fan fiction banner. It's my favorite. And so all of the things that I loved about Alchemized came because of my feelings for that. I still wanted to support Sin and buy their work and have them on my shelves as a legitimate author. So I did that. But it isn't quite the same because of the things that had to be changed to make it legal, to make it marketable, and I totally understand that. I do believe you can read it without reading Manacled, but I don't know yet if you'll have the same reaction. I haven't had any friends yet tell me that this was the first that they read, that they didn't read Manacled, they're just reading this. I have some people who they will read it, and then we'll see. But so far, both my friends who've loved it and hated it, it's because they read Manacled first, and they either feel like this doesn't live up to it, or they feel that they love it because it represents that. So that makes this complex, and it makes it a moral quandary for some, which I understand, and it's up to each person, and that's just my opinion about it. I still cried so much. It still hurt so much. And I did feel that at the end of the day, again, as you'll see in my vlog, that I was able to separate Helena and Cain from Draco and Hermione. They felt like different characters to me. That doesn't mean I liked them better. But there were different aspects to them. There were parts that were different. But on the whole, it is the same story. It has the same beats because that story is great. That's why it's similar, right? Whereas for me with Rose in Chains, I felt like the author copied those, but also made it worse. And it just didn't fit for me because I feel like there wasn't an attempt to make the characters be different. That's my opinion. Other people don't agree. There's people who don't agree. That's fine. But this is my channel and that's my opinion. Now that last piece I want to address. I've seen some reviews already of people talking about how awful this is and how this is the romance of someone falling for their rapist and the romance of this or whatever. And I knew that was going to show up because I knew what Manacled was about. I knew how it played out, and I know people have really strong feelings for that. So that's why this also isn't for everyone. But I watched those videos and I listened to them talking so intelligently about how this is wrong and they're really worried for people in the romance community and there's something fucked up that they would like this. I just wholeheartedly disagree. And that's the part of me that loves dark romance, but it's also the part of me that I don't understand how they just paint it as that brush and that's the only way that they'll see it. Because that is addressed within this book. Like, it's addressed within this book. How can they find peace together after this happened? How can this love of theirs that started in a toxic way anyway, it starts with, I don't want to spoil it, but with her trying to manipulate him into loving her anyway, but then he does, and then she does, and then we knew this was all a game and we still fell in love anyway, and we're in the midst of this absolute shitstorm, and how do we come out of it alive? But also that love that Cain has for Helena is the reason they even have a chance of winning this war, because he's willing to do things that a sane person would not for his obsessive love of her. It's not trying to show that it's healthy or that it's good, and it's not even praising this love story at the end of the day. It's showing you two broken people who their love was all they had left when it was done. So should they scorn that love and just shrivel up and die, or should they find whatever peace they can after a war and just heal their wounds together? So this has a HEA in the standard that this couple will be together and alive at the end of the book. You will get that. That's the only safety caveat I'll get you. But many people who read Manacled and who read this, it doesn't feel happy, you know? Like there's that, you know, by this point, very memed part of it that like, you're gonna feel sad, but you're gonna be happy about it. Like that's what I got at the end. And people write these whole academic essay reviews of it, of how toxic it is and how everyone's demented by it and all of that. And to me, that's the dark romance girly in me who comes out and is like, I can entertain both things. I can entertain that I'm glad these characters found peace and love at the end, and acknowledging that it was dark and twisty to get there, okay? And the sins that Farron must commit against Helena, they would not be okay in any rational, normal, anything close to real life situation. There wouldn't be forgiveness for it. It wouldn't be okay. All these people, all those things. Like, I can hold both things in my hands as a reader and not feel that I am morally corrupt, okay? Because these aren't real characters. And this isn't representative of a real love, okay? It is a fantastical, literal, I will burn them all down if they fuck with you type of situation. And people can feel that way. They can write their things about it. There's a ton of 1 stars on Goodreads of people just saying, tell me you're fucked up without telling me you're fucked up, by giving 5 stars to a rape fantasy story. And that immediately tells me that they didn't get it, okay? And that's not me being snubby or highbrow. You can truly not want to be okay with that story. That's okay. It's all right. But to discount and call people disgusting because they did get it, because it did work for them, you also just lack any emotional depth that there can be something you don't understand that people get from a book. I'm not going to go out and look for a love like Kane Farron. Okay, it's terrifying. I wouldn't want it. But I also think those are people who haven't been reading dark romance. So they've never had that moral quandary in their head of liking a red flag or a gray flag. And I don't even consider this the same. This is a literal war. This isn't the same as falling for a mafia man who's also killed people, but you love him. Okay? This is actual moral quandary. We must commit bad things to win this war. Okay? And those two aren't even the same things to me, right? Like, one thing, falling for the mafia man in a story is kind of a silly, funny, tropey, kitschy thing. There are deep themes that these two go through, and when you get to the end of it, it's not just easy for them to be in love. Like, they're broken, and sometimes Helena can't stand if he touches her because she has a flashback to something bad, and sometimes Kane wants to end his own life because he sees the pain that he's caused to get where they are. But that's what makes it complex. So again, I'm not saying those people are completely wrong, but I think they are playing into the rage bait about it, and not trying to see why some people would be into this. And it doesn't mean they're sick and twisted people, okay? Like, it doesn't. And that's why I think it helps not to call this a romantasy, because I'm not romanticizing the evil that's done in this book. I'm just saying that love was the reason for some of the things done in this book. That doesn't mean I romanticize that love and say that's what I want for myself, you know? And like I said, I watched an essay on it yesterday where they just want to see Kane having had died, and then that would be him getting what he deserves and maybe finding redemption by dying, so that would make up for it. And I just don't feel that way. I want there to be redemption. I believe in redemption, but it's not my job to do said redeeming. And you can read this story and still think that he was awful. But Helena did awful things too. Like, that's what... Anyway, I gotta move on from this because this was supposed to be a non-spoilery thing and we need to move on. But Helena didn't... Like, just because awful things happened to her and they were awful, like, I'm not saying they're not, she also did atrocities in war too. Like, it isn't just Kane. That's the point. They both had to do horrible things. Neither one of them can be cloaked in righteousness or goodness just because the point of this is just because she was on the side of the eternal flame did not mean she didn't have to do bad things too. I don't know. It's just complex. There doesn't have to be a good answer. That's what I find so compelling about this story, is the conversations it can lead to and what it means and all that. But some people just don't want to see that. They just want to say, bad boy bad. Oh, this represents the you-know-what party, blah, blah, blah. And you're all fucked up for liking it. And I'm just like, but the whole point is that we put it in a fantasy world so that we can discuss those things. Not so that we just paint the brush of like, good, bad. He was bad, so he must die. Like, I think you missed the point of it. But I've always said that, and people always disagree. So, anywho, let's move right along because we still have a lot to talk about, including 2 other of my favorite reads this month. So, there was also No Marriage of Convenience by Lana Drammer, and this was actually a fan fiction. This was a Lucius and Hermione. And yes, I actually got through 3 fan fictions this month, and then also Alchemized, which you can call that one whichever you want. They actually got married, and it was kind of like a wizarding, like Married in Vegas scenario. But then because of the marriage laws, this was a very interesting one, because instead of them being forced to get married because of the marriage laws, they actually can't get an annulment because of the marriage laws, which I thought was an interesting twist. And so Lucius actually ends up really wanting the marriage, and so he has to convince Hermione to like give him a chance. So yeah, it was okay. I don't rate the fan fiction, so there's that. Okay, then there was Bitter Burn, which I talked about in detail in my monthly wrap up. This was a 5-star read for me. This wrapped up the Lioness trilogy. We finally got Mark's POV in this one, but it is also a direct, like, you have to read book 1, 2, and 3 in this series, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but I gave it 5 stars. It's a 4.5 on the spice scale. This one has, this one has pegging, it has, a bit of friendly torture, it is very heavily BDSM, there is public punishments, there is punishments, there is orgasm denial, like there's just all the things happening in a Sierra Simone. So, but this was a 5-star, 4.5 on the spice scale for me. Then I read When You Blush by Kristen Proby, and this was book 4 in the Blackwells of Montana. This was also one of my favorites of September, so I talk about it more in that one. But this one involves a doctor, which is Blake Blackwell, and we have Harper, who is a NICU travel nurse, and we have a prologue that first focuses on her leaving her abusive fiance, and then there also is a little while later when she actually meets Blake on the road, and they end up having a one-night stand. She learns what his name is, but he only knows her name is Harper, and then a few months later, she actually gets a job in Bitterroot Falls because her adoptive family needs her there. Her adoptive dad is having some health issues, and so she moves home and gets a permanent position at the NICU at the same hospital that Blake works like weekends at, or like the ER. He also has a clinic, but he works at the ER. And now that his like dream girl is in his town, he's ready to settle down where he hasn't before, but he has to convince her to give it a go because she very much is, you know, a bit jaded and she doesn't see how it could work. But actually, as they start seeing each other, they realize that they actually work very well together because other partners in the past have never understood each other's schedule or how that works or whatever. But they do understand getting a call and needing to be there and the long hours and when you lose a patient, and that's just something they have to learn to share with one another, and I really liked it about this story for sure. So that one was a 5-star and a 3 on the spice scale. Next up was Soft Tissue Damage by Lilith Vincent. Yes. So this was the next book. I can't remember what this like series is called. I didn't write it down. But this is kind of the next book after Fear Me, Love Me, which was that one that was kind of a labyrinth retelling. That one was. Yep. But this one was, okay, it's still dark, and there's still like kind of some manipulative stalking involved, but this one was actually very sweet in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you how. And yeah, I just really, really liked this one. So this one is a boyfriend's dad, and very quickly the boyfriend becomes an ex-boyfriend, but it is a boyfriend's dad to start with, where our heroine, I think she's 20, and she's actually living in kind of an abusive situation where her aunts are very religious and kind of holding a lot over her head, which I won't get into. But she's currently dating, I think his name is Luke. I'm not sure. I think his name is Luke. And he is Cullen's son. And Cullen actually has 2 kids. He has Luke, who, I'm going to call him Luke. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Who is the same age as Elena, our heroine. And then he has a daughter who I think is like really, really young. And so she was a surprise child to Cullen and his wife, who were actually on their way on the outs. Like they were going to be getting a divorce, but they had like this surprise little girl. And he actually loved, well, of course he does, but he's like obsessed with his little girl. He loves her so much. And he is actually is he a hitman? I think that's what they say it is. He's a hitman. And so he actually knows Tyrant Mercer really well, who is the guy from the first one. Okay. So we do have some good cameos from him and the heroine of that one. But he ends up getting a glimpse of the heroine when he goes into work at the diner she works at. And he just thinks she's so beautiful. And then shortly after that discovers that she's dating his son. Now, they haven't been dating for very long, and she's very busy between working and dealing with her aunt and all this stuff. So she doesn't have a ton of time for him. And he's a bit entitled. He's been pretty spoiled by the hero and his ex-wife. And so he's not the best of boyfriends. And once Cullen gets an eye on her, he's now, well, at first he's heartbroken that she's dating his son, but also he's now following her. And he does definitely start manipulating her life, which is where the dark part is. He's stalking her and manipulating her life. And when he actually, like, he hires her to be a part-time nanny for his daughter, and then eventually a full-time nanny when her job at the diner, he ends up making that end. Like, he ends up ruining her job there so that he can have her full-time, which again, he's obsessive. It's a thing. And he also manipulates her into breaking up with his son. Now, he does that by revealing that his son is a cheating asshole. But he does kind of manipulate it into happening, and very soon convinces her to be with him. So, yeah. There's also some murdering involved, and that's where it got dark, is that they're actually both really okay with killing, let's just say that. But this was surprisingly, like, he was very sweet with her, even though, of course, they get real nasty together, and definitely fuck in some really dangerous places. Like, it's still Lilith Vincent after all. But it was also strangely very sweet, and I had a good time with it, even if it, was disturbing in some ways. Like that. So yeah, I gave that one 4 stars, and it was a 3.5 to 4 on the spice scale. Okay, next up, I read Married for Christmas by Noelle Adams. I'm reading this one because she's getting ready to do some promos for her Christmas stories. So this one takes place in... Or no, this one is the first in the Willow Park series. And I had actually read this one before. That's what it was. This was one I read when I was just starting to read some Noelle Adams titles. And I read it as a Christmas novella. I actually listened to the audiobook. And this one was a friends to lovers marriage of convenience. Our hero is actually a pastor. Though this doesn't have religious themes to it. He just is a pastor. Okay, which I thought was interesting. There's no weird commentary or anything going on. And if you aren't religious yourself, I don't think this would bother you, though that's up to you. But to get a specific role that he wants to get, they want him to be married. And our heroine actually wants to get married herself. She wants to have kids, and she figures who better than her best friend. He's actually a widower, though. He lost his wife to, I can't remember if it was cancer or what it was. So there's also that aspect of like, he doesn't know if he can love again. And he's like, are you sure you want to marry me when I'm unsure how I feel about falling in love again? And she's like, I know that it'll be good between us because you're my best friend. And also he was possibly going to have to move to get a different job if he didn't get the one that he was trying to get. So she's like, I really don't want you to go anywhere, so let's do it. So yeah, this was just a quiet marriage of convenience. They have some issues to work through, but Jessica and Daniel were really sweet together. And yeah, I don't rate the books that I read from her, but I thought this one was cute. So if you want to save up some books for Christmas time, like this could be a good one to grab. Then I read Regarding the Duke by Grace Calloway, and this was my Patreon read of September, and this one was for A Marriage in Trouble. So I won't be talking about that one here. I have the full exclusive review available on my Patreon right now. You can go and watch it immediately if you're a patron or if you sign up at the Swooning For You level or higher. And this one was Marriage in Trouble, but it also had amnesia and it was a historical romance. It had amnesia, and it was a marriage of convenience and a virgin heroine. And then it skips ahead 8 years, and that's the Marriage in Trouble part. So very cute. I hadn't read a Grace Calloway in a hot minute, so that was a good one to visit. Okay, next up, this took me way too long, which wasn't necessarily the book's fault, it was just mine. I was in the middle of so many things, but I finished Leave Me Behind, which I did receive an ARC copy from Bloom, so thank you so much to Sourcebooks and Bloom for this. But I also annotated this one, the brand new copy for one of my patrons. So it was perfect because I've been wanting to read it, but if my patron wouldn't have picked it, it probably would have taken me a while. So this was one that this cover is so eye-catching. Even the original cover, which the artwork I have, this was what was on the original cover. And then this was the cover that they did for Bloom. Still very much is the vibe. And I love that they kept this style of cover. It would have been very easy for them to, you know, literally like there's like a target that's raised on here. Like they could have just done that or something. But this really shows what it is. Now, I will say this book was very confusing to me. I don't really understand what was going on. Because let me just read the back to you and then I'll tell you what I thought of it. Okay. This one says, Nell Gallows is the sole survivor of an elite dark force squad called Riot Squad. After a detrimental attack 2 years ago, unsurprisingly, she's being put up as the top candidate for the special ops team, Malum, the squad that goes where no one else can go. There's only one problem. Malum blames their one casualty from a previous mission on the Riot Squad. Okay? So what is Nell to do when she finds herself on a plane to California on her way to a sure death sentence? So she's going to be put in this team to replace the person who died, who that team blames on her team, which she's the only one left of that team. So you can see this is going to be an enemy situation right off the bat, and she's going to be one against like 5 of these soldiers, special ops soldiers at that. So she decides to have a one-night stand. At least that's what it was supposed to be, one night to be free. So she finds out too late that the dark and mysterious man that she lets have his way with her is one of her new comrades and her partner, and he's also the immediate superior and untouchable devil in the field. So he's hell on earth, cruel and unforgiving, but most of all, he hates Nell, and he makes sure she knows it, and yet she finds herself unwilling to leave his side after he's unable to get to the evac point when a mission goes awry. So she's supposed to leave him behind, but she can't do it. And they'll only have one another to trust, but they don't have any faith in each other. So that is the setup of this, and I know that based on what's been said about it and what the tropes are, that this is supposed to be like based on like Call of Duty type thing. And so they're supposed to be sent to these places where no one else goes, but I don't really understand what the missions are. I don't really understand what's the war we're fighting. Like, what is this crew? Like, what are they doing? So I'm very unsure of what, I feel like that's not explained. Let me just say that. I shouldn't be that confused. Like, why are these squads? Why are they attacking one another? Why, like, what are they fighting? Like, what is this? What war is it? And yet we're in real places, but what's happening? Like, I don't understand. Like, I understand it's based on like a video game, but it's based on, am I supposed to know the context of it from said video game? Because obviously I haven't played those. I understand the dynamics of the characters and why they would hate each other and why they're blaming each other. And why things are going to get really nasty, because she basically is on a trial period with them. And so if they can get her to quit, they can get someone else on their team. And she's like, I'm not quitting. She basically has a death wish because she's the only one left of her group. And they are willing to go to the point of killing her to get her gone. And so you're in this situation where they're going to do really fucked up things to her. And that's supposed to be the kinky stuff that we're okay with, including pinning her down in the forest and cutting her while they all hold her down and almost do sexual things to her. But she likes that type of stuff, so that's not going to scare her away. There's also a scene where the commander of the unit isn't Bones, it's actually his twin brother. And he appears to be a nice guy who wants her to be on the team, but there's definitely some suspicious things about him. There's also a scene, and I know this is a spoiler, but it's when I really started to be icked out by this story. I'm gonna tell you. I was fine with all the kinky stuff that Bones and Nell were doing together. But there's a scene where her and Bradshaw / Bones are going at it, and then his brother comes upon them. He ends up leaving, and then Bradshaw is like, I could help you still get off, and she's like, sure, why not? And her and Bradshaw basically masturbate together. He actually climbs over her and jacks off all over her, and then they just go back to business the next day. So that wasn't a consensual playtime that Bradshaw was okay with. So his brother just jacked off all over his girl, and then we just went back to business as usual. Like, there was no indication that that was cool. Like, honestly, it would have been fine. Like, I know that's fucked up, but it would have been fine if he shared her with his brother and we were all consenting, we were all there at the same time. But, like, the brother does that, who's also the commander, okay? Not just her partner where they're equals, like her commander, who's the twin brother, does that. And it's just fine. Like, honestly, that made me sick that we did that. It was gross. And there was lots of kinky stuff in here. Like, there was lots of kinky stuff in here, but I didn't understand what was happening in the story. It was just scene after scene of him trying to convince her to leave, and those scenes of him trying to convince her to leave led to them doing sexually depraved things together. So this was filled with all the kinky warnings that it gives us. Like, here, I'll list them off for you. There was pain kink, blood play, morbid humor, explicit gore, death, explicit language, extreme bullying, harassment, sexual assault, non-con, dub-con, sexist behavior, war, trauma, aspects of war, mention of rape, and home intrusion. Okay, so all of those were in here. But it just was a one, like, orgy of let's do all the things we can. And then we got to the time where there's the leave me behind moment is actually like the third act part of the book. So that's in the blurb, but it doesn't happen till the very end. And then I don't want to spoil the very ending of it, but there's a choice made that ends up involving a time jump, and I legit threw this book on the floor. Like, no joke. I was doing reading sprints with Crystal's Bookish Life with her Patreon, and right as the timer was going off that our sprint was over, I read the scene where the time jump happens, and I threw my book on the floor because I was like, what the fuck was this story? So I just don't get it. Like, I'm okay with the kinky things in here. I want to be clear. That's not my problem. The problem is, I don't believe these two were in love at any point in the story. Like, when did they fall in love? Just by doing the kinky shit to each other? Like, they bonded over trauma. I guess there's that. The brother never answers also for what he does with her. We're just okay with him by the end. The villain wasn't a surprise. I saw who that was going to be. But what were the consequences to anyone? Who were we fighting for? Like, that was never explained. Like, what government or what agency is setting them up to do these? Why are they just trading people around? Like, none of it made sense to me, okay? So all I was left with was this kinky relationship that we're in the theater of war. We're fucking in random places where enemies could shoot us. It was one big danger bang, which is okay. So I didn't understand this, where we were going. So I don't know. There are more books coming from K.M. Moranova that I'm signed up to read, and I don't know how I feel about them now, because this one just got so much hype, and I wonder if it got the hype because of the look of it, which, great look of it, and because it's sold as like a dark Call of Duty with kinky stuff in it. I don't know, but I didn't get it. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. I ended up at a 3-star because I did, I finished the whole thing and there were parts that were cool, but overall, I just don't get the hype with this one. I see a lot of people taking pictures of it and sharing it, but I don't really see a lot of like, why do people love it going on? So yeah, I don't know. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to my loves who wanted that one. But a lot of my notations are like, okay. Like, I didn't really rant while I was reading it. I just was taking my notes because it took until the very end when it was done that I was like, that's it? Because once it was over, it was like, that's it after everything. I just don't understand what we were fighting for and what was going on. So, moving right along, I read a novella for Madison that she's hoping to get out this month. So I think I can say the name of it, but I won't show you the cover. It's going to be called Beg for It. And this does loosely connect with her video game trilogy that she did, the gamer trilogy she did. And this is supposed to be a novella to possibly set up a new series she's going to do. And it's Halloween time. It involves a masked, sexy man. And actually like her group of friends was his like high school bully. So, and then there is a party where he's able to draw her out and they have some kinky experiences together. And then she finds out who he is. And so the story leaves off kind of like there's going to be more between these two. So yeah, it was a novella length and, I don't rate the things that I beta read, but it was really good. We had our chat about it. So we'll see what she changes before that one comes out. But I know she's aiming to have it out by the end of, by the time Halloween happens. So that was fun. I was really happy she had another book coming, and we'll see how that one goes. And then the last book that I finished was another ALC for Must Love Audio. And this one was Bad for Business by Kat Singleton. Now, I had read Kat Singleton before, but I didn't really care for that one. It was a small town kind of cowboy one I read by her. But this one was a billionaire, at least a billionaire's son, who gets some bad PR. And so his family hires this PR agency. And Camille is the heroine's name. And she actually does not want this job because she's actually had a one-night stand with the hero before. And it, didn't go real well. Their one-night stand just, didn't go too well for them. Or, it did, but they never saw one another again. And so, sorry, I said that wrong. So then running into him, she's like, I don't want him thinking that I'm just some easy girl. I'm here to work, and I'm here to prove my father wrong, because her dad just doesn't take her seriously in a role. And so she's really doing it with a bit of a daddy issues, to try to get a role within the company that her father seems unwilling to give her. So she ends up having to stay with Riker are they in the Hamptons or in the city, wherever they are, to kind of help him schmooze the people of the board to help him get a board position secured for his family business. And it's forced proximity because she's living at his home while she does this. And there's like rivals to lovers energy going on. So this was really cute. The audio was great. It was duet narrated by J.F. Harding and Vanessa Edwin. So great pairing for those two. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale. They were really great together. And this was book 2 in the series. I hadn't read book 1, but I may go back and read it because it was a really sweet one and I enjoyed myself with it. So okay, there you go. Those are the 12 things I read in the last 2 weeks. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on them. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, let me know what you like. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, hype this video if you think to do it. And I have links to everything I talked about down below. And we'll see you next time. Bye.